who has a spouse that's won a Pulitzer Prize, Sherrod Brown from Ohio.
Connie. We want Connie. Way better at asking questions than I am, President.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your visit to Lorain County, Ohio. A week and a half ago, first presidential visit to that county of 300,000, and since Harry Truman in 1948.
It was a great visit. We had a great time.
It was terrific. 10 miles from there at Oberlin College, one of the great private institutions of higher learning in this country. At Oberlin College, there was a building built there 7 or 8 years ago, fully powered by solar panels. It's the largest building. It was the largest building in any college campus in America like that. Those solar panels were bought in Germany and Japan, not surprisingly. Germany, a country that has both an energy policy and a manufacturing policy. 75 miles west of there is Toledo, Ohio, where you've been several times. And Toledo has more solar manufacturing jobs than any city in America. It begs the question of two things in terms of manufacturing policy and energy policy. We have all kinds of things in so many of our states, manufacturing wind turbine components and solar panel components, but we're the only major industrial country in the world without a manufacturing policy. And every rich country in the world has one. We don't. I know what you're doing with Ron Bloom in the White House and other things, but how do we get there? How do we, when we read these articles in the paper that China is just exploding in terms of wind turbine manufacturing and solar panel manufacturing, how do we rebuild our manufacturing sector with a manufacturing policy combined with an energy policy that gets us there?
I hope people had a chance to read that article that was in the New York Times, I guess last Sunday, talking about how China is not waiting, it is moving. And already the anticipation is that they will lap us when it comes to clean energy. Now, they're not a democracy, and so they don't debate. And there are no filibuster rules. And so, obviously, over the long term, a system that allows for robust debate and exchange of ideas is going to produce a better result. I believe that. But we have to understand that when it comes to some key issues like energy, we are at risk of falling behind. We've already fallen behind, but it's not irrevocable because we still have the best research. We still have potentially the best technology. We've got the best universities, the best scientists, and as I said, we've got the most productive workers in the world. But we've got to bring all those things together into a coherent whole. Now, I think there are a couple of elements to this. One, in terms of manufacturing generally, you just mentioned Ron Bloom, who we put in charge of a manufacturing task force, is just issuing now a report to me about the direction we need to go to have some coordination when it comes to manufacturing. Now, this is not some big bureaucratic top-down industrial policy. It is figuring out how do we coordinate businesses, universities, government, to start looking at where are strategic opportunities and then making those investments, filling holes that exist so that we can be competitive with what China's doing or what Germany's doing or what Spain's doing. And my hope is that during the course of this year, we're going to be able to work with all 50 senators, because all of you have a stake in this, to just see where are our manufacturing opportunities and where can we plug some holes in order to make sure that we're competitive internationally. Specifically on clean energy, we know that's an opportunity. I continue to believe, and I'm not alone in this, that the country that figures out most rapidly new forms of energy and can commercialize new ideas is going to lead the 21st century economy. I think that is our growth model.
Final question.
But hold on, sorry, just one last thing I want to say about this. In order for us to maximize it, part of it is the good work that Jeff's been doing in terms of just finding the right incentives. We've got to be open-minded about a whole range of technologies. We've got to look at clean coal technology. We've got to look at nuclear technology. We're going to be making some significant announcements this year. This is an example, Blanche, of where we can't be stuck in the past in terms of how we see these things. We're not going to be able to ramp up solar and wind to suddenly replace every other energy source anytime soon, and the economy still needs to grow. So we've got to look at how to make existing technologies and options better. But, and this is just the point that I want to make because it came up in New Hampshire yesterday, we still, one of the best ways to be on the forefront on the in energy is to incentivize clean energy and discourage the old sources or methods that aren't going to work in the future. And so the fact that Joe Lieberman is working with Lindsey Graham, John Kerry has been all over this. The three of them are coming together to try to find a workable bipartisan structure so that we are incentivizing and rewarding the future and understanding that there's a transition so that we've got to make sure that the disruptions are minimized as we move into this new energy future. That's going to be vital. So don't give up on that. I don't want us to just say the easy way out is for us to just give a bunch of tax credits to clean energy companies. The market works best when it responds to price. And if they start seeing that, you know what, dirty energy is a little pricier, clean energy is a little cheaper, they will innovate and they will think things through in all kinds of innovative ways. So I want to congratulate specifically John Kerry, Joe Lieberman, and Lindsey Graham, who it probably doesn't help him for me to compliment him, but has been very thoughtful in terms of how they're approaching this issue. So.
Final question, Evan Bayh, Indiana.
Thank you for being with us, Mr. President. We've run overtime.
Here you go. Here, pass that over.
Wait, no, we can get you a mic. Yeah. Nice sneakers, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, got to stay light on your feet around here, right? Mr. President, you've already addressed this in part, and several of the other questioners have raised this, but I'd like to present it in a little bit different way that I think is on the minds of people in my state and perhaps on the minds of independents and moderate Republicans and conservative Democrats around the country, and that's this issue of the deficit and rising debt and restoring the fiscal health of this country to a position where it ought to be. Frankly, I think the public and average citizens have been way ahead of the political class on this. They understand in the long run this is unsustainable. It's bad economics. They understand that generationally, as Michael was mentioning, it's unfair to our children to ask them to pay these bills. And most of all, there's a sense of unfairness. They're having to make sacrifices in their daily lives, but too many in Washington expect to have continuing increases in the programs they care about. Ordinary citizens are making sacrifices, and yet we want our earmarks or pet projects. And they ask, why can't Washington make the same sacrifices that we're willing to make? Now, I think they realize that the other party doesn't have much credibility on this subject. They handed you a $1.3 trillion deficit. Vice President Cheney famously said that, in his opinion, deficits didn't matter. He just flat out said it. That's wrong. It's bad economics. It's wrong. And so we've got a job to do. But I think many people across the country candidly look at us and say, well, I don't know if the Democrats are willing to take this on. They think we want to tax too much and spend too much, and do we have the backbone to really stand up and make some of these hard decisions? Now, to your credit, you've called for some things that aren't always popular in our party. The first thing I noticed when you put into effect that non-security discretionary spending freeze is you got kicked in the shins by some of the left-wing blogs, and you called for more restraint on earmarks. That's not always popular among our group. But to your credit, you've called for those things. So my question to you, Mr. President, is speaking to independents, conservative Democrats, moderate Republicans, people who know we have to do this, why should the Democratic Party be trusted, and are we willing to make some of the tough decisions to actually head this country in a better direction?
Well, I'll tell you why the Democratic Party should be trusted, because the last time this budget was balanced, it was under a Democratic president who made some very tough decisions.